Hello, everybody, and welcome to TJ's Lego Room. And today marks the end of an era here because I was recently made aware that this set, the Sith TIE Fighter, set number 75272, is actually going to be retired this year in 2021. They're no longer going to be making it. And that means two things. Number one, these sets are about to get very expensive. They actually went on sale pretty frequently around where I am. I think the original MSRP was like $80 or something, which is way too much. But you could always find them for around 50. Sometimes I've even seen a couple of them going for 40. But they are about to get more expensive if you want to get the set going forward. And the second big part about the set being retired is that creating mocs using the parts from that set exclusively are going to become harder and harder to make. Not only for myself, but for anybody who buys my instructions or downloads my instructions. It's going to be harder and harder to source those parts. And it's going to get more and more expensive, and people just aren't going to want to do it anymore. So that means that from the publishing of this video, I'm no longer going to be actively designing ships for the final order using the rare pieces from that set. So the idea to build ships in this era and style has really pushed my creativity and Lego building skills over the years. Over the past year and a half since I was working on the Javelin. And these builds you see here have really been some of my best received designs that I have ever created. Everybody's kind words and comments, as well as the runaway success of the instructions and the videos about these ships, have encouraged me every time I start questioning my abilities as a designer and in the decisions that I've made in this hobby. However, even though this fleet is pretty sweet, I still felt like there was one missing part of the fleet, an interceptor. And if there was ever a time to build an interceptor, obviously with that set retiring, the time would be now. Behold, the Glaive Interceptor. So, while the First Order relied on the vast numbers of the Trident droid fighter and the versatility of the Javelin and the devastating power of the Wrath, there was a glaring weakness in the fleet that could be exploited by the ubiquitous Resistance A-Wing. The Final Order needed a counterpart high-speed interceptor to take on the fighter v fighter role with high maneuverability and purpose-built firepower. Taking several cues from their Imperial predecessors, the Sith engineers built from scratch an impressive combination of strength, speed, and rapid firepower. The wings are outlined with the same red-tinged ultrachrome edge that the Trident fighters used, making them extremely durable against any physical contact with enemy ships and debris. The solar panels use a special core, enabling them to have a completely clear center without the cumbersome spiderweb supports of the Imperial ties. So if you look on the side here, instead of having like the little center knob and the little things going out to the corners, this is completely black. It's completely open for the panel, so it's maximum efficiency there. And that was really fun, and I think it looks pretty good. Not only that, but it also makes it harder to see in space. You can only see the little slight red tinged outline of the ultrachrome. So as far as firepower, there are no chin cannons on the TIE Fighter like normally. Instead, they opted for, if I turn it to the side here, they opted for long-barreled laser cannons with adjustable convergence lengths similar to like the X-Wing. These cannons are also rapid firing, giving the operator a steady stream of fire that devastates smaller ships' shields in a matter of seconds. As a bonus, these cannons have a unique feeding system that have a diverter at the main coupling. So there's a diverter right inside there where it attaches. And that allows the charge for the cannons to be sent to two smaller cannons on the back side. And they're rear-facing to act in a pursuit-discouraging measure. I wouldn't say they're necessarily anti-pursuit cannons because they aren't even a little bit accurate. But it's more of a psychological tactic than anything. Like most of my anti-pursuit cannons, it's all about the psychology of scaring people off when they finally get lined up behind you. Another change from the Javelin is, interestingly enough, the removal of the hyperdrive. And what they did is they replaced the hyperdrive with two very powerful forward deflector shields that are mounted and have their emitters right at the front here. So they're actually overlapping, which is pretty awesome. But as I mentioned in the Trident video, the reason for this is because pilots are limited in the final order, and therefore they're quite valuable. And when it comes to the interceptors, the glaives, the pilots are even more precious, because in order to be promoted to pilot a glaive, you have to be the best of the best. You have to rack up multiple successful missions and have a minimum of 50 confirmed enemy eliminations. So with this added pressure of having the best pilots in these crafts, the glaive was designed with those overlapping deflectors to keep the pilot safe, even if their shield or even if their ship was disabled or severely damaged. That does limit the mobility of this craft and how far it can go as far as on missions and stuff like that. However, I think that's a small sacrifice to pay, and generally these would be stationed inside of larger ships in order to protect them and to protect and escort other ships that may need it. Now the last couple of features are holdovers from the Javelin, namely the landing mechanism and drop-down cockpit. So I'm going to go ahead and jump up, and I'm going to show you those right here. So remove that stand, and from the back end I have two levers, and those levers can be activated with either handed, just like the Javelin, and you just press down on it and it lifts the wings just like that. And then of course the drop-down cockpit works almost identically to the Javelin. It's just got this little button on top that pops right down. And as a matter of fact, that part of the Javelin that part of the Glaive is exactly like the Javelin as far as where you're supposed to press down. It's right behind the bubble on some upside down clip pieces that are pretty easy to see. So that was really fun. I'm really excited. I know that was one of the biggest parts of the original Javelin fighter, and I wanted to make sure to keep that. Now, while this ship wasn't designed for long-range actions, their advanced parameter requirements meant that they were also not designed to fit inside the traditional hangar mounts. So because the designers preferred function over conformity so that they could fit on the ship, they did keep those rotating wing functions and drop-down cockpit for takeoff and landing. While at first this was thought to be a little bit of a space waster because of how tall it is, it's actually, I think it's either exactly the same or just a little bit taller than the Javelin. So while at first this was thought to be a space waster, it was soon pointed out that in vertical form the Glaive does not take up as much space as the Javelin thanks to its very compact wing design. So if I turn it sideways here, you can see that the ship still fits almost completely within the wings. So when they were in the hangar, you could actually land them up multiples in a row. So one right behind it, right in front of it. And so it actually maximized the space in the hangar, even though they weren't specifically designed to fit on the mounts that most of the ships had. And so with that, we are pretty much at the end of showing off the Glaive Interceptor. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pop up the cockpit there. You go ahead and get this, lower it down, boop, and you just lower it down using your thumb again. It's a little front heavy, and so you want to use your thumb to kind of slow it down a little bit and act more of a controlled drop. So boop, just like that. And that's it. So as of now, we have pretty much seen all of the fighters that are going to be in the final order fleet. Now that does leave openings for shuttles, transport ships, and capital ships, of course. And one day I hope to be able to build a giant capital ship, or like obviously not minifigure scale, but you know, kind of the Star Destroyer scale. And so with that, we started with the Javelin, which evolved into the Wrath, eventually the Trident Droid Starfighters, and we ended here with the Glaive. So the main reason that the Glaive finally got made, the Interceptor here, is because when I built the Trident Droid Starfighters, I asked the patrons what wing configuration they really liked, and they liked this version of the wings where it kind of was opening up into kind of a pincer shape. It's like scissors that are slightly open a little bit from the side with the 4 prongs. This was actually what the Trident Droid Starfighter looked like at one point, and I liked it so much I decided I wanted to make that the final Interceptor design. So thanks to the patrons for helping me out with that. That was awesome. Love you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this look into the last fighter for the Final Order. And as of September 1st, the instructions will be up on Rebrickable.com. So make sure to pick up your Sith TIE Fighters before they are retired and the price jumps. And until we see you next time in TJ's Lego Room, bye-bye.